Welcome to Dark Knight Films Reviews. I'm your host, Matt Spease, and today we're doing another ranking video. This time I will be ranking all 7 of the Universal Dracula films. Just like my previous review of the Hammer Dracula films, this is going to be ranking the worst to the best. So, if you like these ideas and everything, please say so in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Alright, so, starting off this list, coming in at number 7, we have Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein from 1948. Now, let me get this out there right away. I am a big fan of Abbott and Costello, just as much as I'm a fan of the Three Stooges and Laurel and Hardy. But this film is one of the last films to feature any of these monsters from the Universal heyday. And it is the last appearance we would have of Dracula in these films. And we had the monumental return of Bela Lugosi as the character. And he gives his all in this. He gives a great performance in this. Probably even better than, his performance in the 1931 film in a lot of ways. But them being saddled alongside Abbott and Costello. Now, thankfully, they did not make the monsters, make light of them and make them funny. In this, Bela Lugosi's Dracula, Lon Chaney Jr.'s Larry Talbot the Wolfman, and Glenn Strange's Frankenstein monster are all played deadpan serious in this, which, that just makes me wish that this could have been the last serious film from them in this. Now, there are goofy moments with Dracula, unintentional, of course, where he turns into a bat. Even though it was like over 10 years difference between this film and the Munsters, I think it was much better done. The transformations from Dracula into a bat to Grandpa turning into a bat in the Munsters. And they were on a TV show budget. This was a movie budget. So, yeah, it's disappointing. Like I said, Bela Lugosi gives a great performance in here. And the scene in which he uses his mesmeric powers to get Lenore, Aubert's character of Dr. Sandra Morneau, to cooperate with him. It's a great scene, except for one matter. The whole time he's doing this, you see his reflection in the mirror behind them. If they wanted to do this effective, they should have done an effect shot there to show that he had no reflection. Or don't do it in front of a mirror, because Dracula does not have a reflection. It also takes away from the moment later on when Dracula and Sandra show up at the party. She's already under his control at this point. And the reporter character, working with Abbott and Costello and the other heroes, Larry and I forget what the other guy's name is. But they show up at the party, and she's, this reporter character of Joan, played by Jane Randolph, is very well played up to this point, and she's serious, just like that. All the other characters other than Abbott and Costello are played straight. And this scene, you hit Dracula meeting Joan and going off with her for a dance. And then the next time we see Joan, she's sitting on the boat like a zombie. If this had been a serious movie, that would have been a major plot point where we would have saw him walk off with her and then end up doing like he did with Sandra. We didn't get that and we don't get her helping Dracula because they decided just, all right, we're done with her character. She's just going to sit here as a zombie through the rest of the runtime of this film. And I thought that was a missed opportunity. They could have had, if this had not been Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, they could have had some really good stuff with Dracula in here that they missed out on. And that's why this is at the bottom of my list. Coming in at number 6, we have Dracula's Daughter from 1936. Now, this film, much like Hammer's Brides of Dracula, is a Dracula's film. And this is a shame because the atmosphere in this film was very good. Now, the performance of Gloria Holden as Dracula's daughter in there is really good and creepy. And she has a really great scene with the lovely and talented Nan Gray as Lily in here, which it's an excellent sequence, but it goes nowhere. The main character that is alongside the heroes, for brief little cameo, Edward Van Sloan returning as Van Helsing, Otto Kruger as the doctor, Garth. You've got the character that Marguerite Churchill is playing. And again, just like Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, they go nowhere with it. I mean, Dracula's daughter does not even target this girl to use her against the heroes trying to stop her. What a missed opportunity. It's just so weird of a film to go with a Dracula film without Dracula in it. And it was especially weird to take Edward Van Sloan and bring him back just for this small little cameo sequence in there. He isn't a major character in this. He's just like a confidant that Otto's character ends up going to and talks to for, I think, just one sequence. So yeah, it is what it is, I guess, but that's why it's my number 6. Coming in at number 5, we have House of Frankenstein from 1944. Now this one is really disappointing as far as the Dracula elements of it. I mean, this film has Boris Karloff returning to the Frankenstein series for the first time since Son of Frankenstein. But he's not playing Frankenstein's monster. He's playing a character named Dr. Neiman. And then you have the return of Lon Chaney Jr. as Larry Talbot / the Wolfman. And both of those characters are major characters in this film. And then you get John Carradine as Dracula, which Carradine plays a good Dracula in this. He's very charming. He's charming as a character and charismatic. So he plays a really good, likable Dracula. But he's only featured long enough to hypnotize Anne Gwynne to try and get her to come away with him. And then he is immediately stopped by her boyfriend, played by Peter Coe. It's over. That's it. And that's it for him, at least. I mean, the movie continues onward without him after he has been dispatched so early. But what a waste of a character. That's why it makes my number 5. I mean, you had a good idea here, and you just wasted it. Coming in at number 4, we have House of Dracula from 1945. Much like the previous film, House of Frankenstein, even though this one is called House of Dracula, we don't get much Dracula action in this one either. So, John Carradine is brought back once again, and his character is dispatched after he hypnotizes Martha O'Driscoll's character of Melinzia and plans to go away with her and steal her away. His vampire powers, in a way, are sort of transferred over through blood to Onslow Stevens as Dr. Edelman, and then he ends up becoming the main villain of this story. Larry Talbot, played by Lon Chaney Jr. once again, is the main hero of this story, and it is good that we get this final curing of Talbot, and he gets this happy ending to where he is the hero and he saves the day and he lives at the end. But I mean, at the sacrifice, this movie is called House of Dracula, and this is a sacrifice of, they have a female hunchback character played by Jane Addams, named Nina, who they could have done so cool if they would have just had Dracula, use her. Like Dr., the Onslow Stevens character could have been trying to stop Dracula once he found out what he was planning. And then, you could have had him use his powers to get under his control. And she's a hunchback, so, and then she could have strangled and killed Dr. Edelman, and then Dracula kind of takes over his place at that place to try and revive Frankenstein's monster and everything, And then it could have been Larry Talbot could have came in still, like at the end, to save the day. But no, they didn't do that. They decided to, yep, we're going to kill off Dracula, and then we're going to make Onslow Stevens the proto-Dracula throughout this. It doesn't work. And that is why it's number 4 on my list. Coming in at number 3, we have Dracula from 1931. This is Bela Lugosi's big introduction to Universal, playing the Count. And he's great in here, as is Edward Van Sloan as Van Helsing, and Dwight Frye as Renfield. Their portrayals are really good. It's a shame some of the actors around them, like Helen Chandler as Mina, David Manners as Jonathan Harker, and the character of Lucy is weak in here. Joan Standing, playing the nurse, Briggs, in here, gives a much better performance than some of the leading characters do, which is... The problem here with this is the rest of them are really badly played. It feels like a stage play being shot. And Todd Browning's photography is shot pretty much static throughout it. It is a boring film to watch. It has no stylistic approach to it, as a lot of these movies in the 30s were. So I hate to put it down like this on this list. I would love to have it at number 1, but you only have a couple of good moments with Dracula being Dracula in here. And he only gets one scene where he gets the flower girl, which is a fun little sequence where he hypnotizes the girl and then bites her. And then when he gets to the opera house, he hypnotizes the main woman that was taking their coats and everything. And later, he supposedly hypnotizes Joan Standing's nurse, but we don't see it. It's not shown. That brings it down for me. I mean, you're going to do some shit off camera. She mentions it. It's mentioned instead of actually being shown. I hate that when they do stupid shit like that. It's the same way with Helen Chandler's Mina. Nothing is shown with her. It's just mentioned later, So it really brings the film down. And then Dracula's end, when he grabs... It's very weak, the ending where he grabs Renfield and just grabs him by the nape of the neck. It looks like it's going to be a big thing. And then he just lets him go, and he just slumps and just crumples down the stairs. And then he goes and gets in his coffin and just lets them impale him. It's over, and you don't see it. It's this 1931 movie. We can't show the lead character getting a stake through the heart and dying, so you just hear of he's being staked, Underwhelming is the best thing I can say about this film. Coming in at number 2, we have Son of Dracula from 1943. I know what a lot of you are thinking. I mean, how could you put any movies above the original classic. Well, Son of Dracula, even though the title is stupid because Lon Chaney Jr. plays Dracula in this. He's not playing Dracula's son in this. He really is playing Dracula. But the visual style, the flair of the way this thing is put together and shot, the atmosphere, it far surpasses Dracula, 1931. Even though Lon Chaney Jr. does not make an effective Count Dracula. The problem with him trying to play this aristocratic vampire that he's trying to portray in this film is Lon Chaney Jr. worked better playing everyday normal men, normal people. That's why he worked so well in the role of Larry Talbot, the Wolfman. And that's why that is his most celebrated role, other than the Mummy. But that's more because of his stature, because he's a big guy. So the Mummy role worked better for him because of his physical stature. Whereas the Wolfman was because he just has that likability of a normal, everyday guy that you can relate to. Playing Dracula, he doesn't work as well. But he is surrounded by a good cast here with Louise Allbritton as Catherine, Robert Paige as Frank, the lovely, Evelyn Ankers as Claire, and then we have our pseudo Von Helsing. J. Edward Bromberg plays the role of Professor Laszlo. And he is amazing in this. His portrayal here is, Robert Paige is good as Frank as well in here, but the scenes with the professor in this are really a standout, especially the scene where Dracula goes and becomes mist, goes under the door and appears in front of him. And the old prof, he just holds his own. He knows about vampires, and he knows what to do. He doesn't get upset. He doesn't break under the pressure of Dracula coming in after him. It's a great scene. But as beautiful as Louise Allbritton is as Catherine, I do not like the way they opened the film with her already a thrall to Dracula. And then Robert Page's Frank is just wondering why his love of his life has all of a sudden just left him for this Count Alucard, as he nicknames himself in this film. And then, of course, you've got Evelyn Ankers, who's great as Claire, but again, they don't capitalize on the idea of Dracula going after Claire and using her against Frank and the professor. These movies don't get that, unfortunately. But otherwise, it's got the atmosphere, it's got some really good performances, and that's why it is my number 2. And coming in at number 1 on the list is Dracula, the Spanish version from 1931. This version was shot simultaneously at the same time as the Bela Lugosi version, which is more famous, of course. It was shot on the same sets. So while Dracula is being shot during the day, later on in the night, Spanish crew comes in and shoots on the exact same sets. George Melford directed this one, and his direction style is a complete 180 over the static, boring shooting style of Todd Browning. Now, he does not have as strong of a Count Dracula with Carlos Villarías, but he does have a super strong and sexy character of Mina in there with, well, a Mina variation. I think they changed her name in this, with Lupita Tovar. She is just awesome in this. And the outfits that they gave to the girls is much more provocative as opposed to the more, censorship approach 1930s of the Bela Lugosi version. But the action throughout this, the acting of, Renfield and Van Helsing, they're serviceable. And Jonathan Harker is better too. He's more of a tough character and believable, than David Manners' boring ass Jonathan Harker from Bela's version. The new scenes that he puts in here, like you actually getting to see Dracula hypnotize the maid girl or nurse. You actually seeing him and programming her to help him to get into the room to get to Lupita Tovar. Those scenes are great. Now, one thing the Spanish version doesn't have, which I don't think it hurts it, the scene with the flower girl is completely non-existent in the Spanish version. But when Dracula is entering the opera house at the beginning, when he arrives in London, that is Bela Lugosi walking up and entering the... they did not shoot a scene for that, apparently, for the Spanish version. They just decided, we're just going to use the shot of Bela Lugosi walking in here. And it's kind of apparent because, he does kind of look toward the camera and then, turn and walk into the opera house, so it's, Carlos Villarías does do an more intense portrayal here. The scene in which he sees the mirror. Van Helsing shows him the mirror in which he casts no reflection. In the Bela version, he just slaps it out of his hand and looks at him angrily. Carlos Villarías takes his cane that he had in his hand and he just shatters it and then looks at him intensely. And then later at the end of the movie, you get the biggest difference as far as action-wise when he grabs Renfield. Whew. Instead of just grabbing him and just choking him and, just him just slumping and falling down like they did with Dwight Frye and Bela's version. No, he grabs him and he just tosses him over the stairwell and he falls. Boom, Great sequence there, So, Unfortunately, they still don't show him getting staked at the end. It's still kind of anticlimactic, just like the original 31 movie with Bela. But I think the way this film was put together, shot, it is much more elaborate, much more fun, much more fluid, and it's much more atmospheric and fun as a film. It really sucks that they don't have a dubbed version of this or anything like that. So to watch it, you have to be ready to read all the dialogue because they're speaking Spanish and it's subtitled. But other than that, that's the only drawback I saw in this one. This was the best Universal Dracula movie ever. So, what are your thoughts? What are your rankings on the 7 Dracula movies from Universal? Do you agree with my list? Please comment down below. Let me know what you think. And as usual, if you like my videos, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Because it really does help the channel out a lot. And this is not it. We are still in the swing of the Halloween season. And there's more videos to come. I hope you're enjoying them as much as I'm enjoying doing them. I'll see you next time.